Okay, let's talk a little bit about insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance. So, here's the deal. If you're carrying more weight than you're supposed to, in other words, you have an ideal weight in your mind, or even somebody has worked it out for you. If you're not at that ideal weight and you're more than that, there is a degree of insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is not something you want because it compounds and compounds and compounds. And the nth degree of insulin resistance is diabetes type 2. So you don't want to get to that point because it takes about 15 years of eating a bad diet for you to reach that point. So you can pull it back and you don't have to go down that road. Now the thing with insulin is this, is that it has a few functions in the body, but two of the major functions are it removes excess glucose from the blood. So you're meant to have about a teaspoon of glucose in your blood at any given time. That'll run all the functions needed. But if you go and drink something like a soda pop, a can of soda pop, you're putting about 12 to 20 teaspoons of sugar in your body and it turns to glucose. So now you have 20 times the amount of sugar or glucose in your blood that you're meant to have. What that's going to do is raise insulin levels because your pancreas that creates insulin is going to go, oh no, this guy's going to die or this girl's going to die. I better pump out insulin to try to remove that excess glucose. Now, the other function that insulin has is it binds to the nutrients or the glucose. The glycogen actually is what the glucose turns into as it gets driven into the cell. And it touches on a little receptor, like a little landing pad for a rocket. And as it touches on that receptor, it opens up the cell so that the insulin can drive those nutrients into the cell. If you have too much insulin in your blood, the cells become more and more resistant to it because all of those harmful nutrients, all of that harmful insulin, which is too abundant, starts harming the cell. And the cell is a little organism that is trying to survive. So it goes, hang on one second, we're not going to accept any more insulin. So it starts to become insulin resistant. That means you start starving slowly but surely because that nutrients that you've been putting in your mouth, chewing and processing are no longer being driven into the cell. They're being turned into fat and placed around the body in areas that are usually compromised or dysfunctional. Like if you have an adrenal problem, it'll go around your adrenals. If you have an ovary problem, it'll go around your ovaries. So that's what it does. It starts to place itself all over the body. And the first place it goes for is your liver. So you get a fatty liver. And the problem with fat is that it stores toxins. So now you have all this fat building up on your liver, which is full of toxins. So this is all coming from insulin resistance. So if someone is insulin resistant, you can be dead sure that they have a fatty liver too, and a toxic fatty liver. The other thing is that in high insulin zones, you will never lose weight. You will only put weight on. So that's what we need you to think with when you're eating food that turns into glucose. That's bread, grains, rice, sugar, all these processed carbohydrates, even too much protein can turn into glucose in your body. So you need to start thinking with that because a healthy body is insulin sensitive because it's eating the right food. You don't want to go insulin sensitive and then start eating the wrong food like a little cheat because that will push your triglyceride level very high, which is actually quite dangerous. The other thing is that when someone is insulin resistant or diabetic, we at BBHC definitely go to work on cleaning out the liver or at least the fat on the liver because it is always the case that the liver has been compromised. There are so many other things like blood pressure, cholesterol levels, all of these things, triglyceride levels, are all connected to insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is also connected to bad eyesight, brain fog. There are so many conditions that people just walk around with and think it is normal when it is actually not. And also, you will lose weight at the rate that you are insulin resistant. In other words, to the degree that you are insulin resistant is to the degree that you will lose weight. So as you start becoming more insulin sensitive, you'll lose more weight faster. If you are insulin resistant, you will lose weight slower. So the answer is do the BBHC program properly and to the T, and your insulin resistance will turn to insulin sensitivity. Your liver fat will burn off. Your cholesterol may go up a little bit because you're burning fat. There's a lot more fat going into your system now. But don't worry about the cholesterol thing. It's all a myth anyway. There's only a certain kind of cholesterol that is really dangerous, and that's for another video, and it's very rarely high. So I hope you learned something about insulin resistance and why you need to eat correctly and not spike your blood glucose too much. Just on a last note, if you have one piece of white bread, that will turn into 12 teaspoons of glucose. So it's the same glucose. It's the same glucose that sugar turns to. It's the same glucose that a donut will turn to. It's all the same glucose. So the liver turns it into these glucose. So don't think you're going to get away with it just because you're eating white bread or you're having this or you're having that. You have to stick to the food list on this program and you will win. If you don't, you're actually doing yourself a massive disservice, because not only are you not getting the wins that you may get on this program, but you're actually creating quite a bit of damage in the body. This is not one of those diets that you can cheat on and have a cheat day. You definitely need to stick to this. And if you do, you will become healthy. And being healthy and slim is far than a 30-second scoffing down of a donut or ice cream or something like that. That is over and it leaves damage. This is lasting when you get healthy and you get down to a nice slim body. All right, I hope you learned something about insulin resistance here. So speak to your coach and you'll find out more, and she or he will be able to coach you through any insulin resistance that you may have.